Welcome. I'm Ryan Jewell. This presentation is a review of landmark cases that have formed the basis for defamation cases in the United States. To start this out, we should explore the actual definition of the term defamation. Defamation, it's a catch-all term for any statement that hurts somebody's reputation. Written defamation, well, that's called libel. And spoken defamation is called slander. Defamation, it's not a crime, but it is a tort. That's a civil wrong rather than a criminal wrong. On the screen, you will see the case New York Times versus Sullivan. And some of the questions about this case that we'll cover in this presentation. Here's the second case with topics that I will discuss. It's a little different case, but it's a defamation case nonetheless. Finally, I will discuss the defamation laws as seen by the state of Utah. And then the lessons learned from both of these cases that can be applied to my prospective career in public relations. American author and poet Chris Jamie is quoted as saying, "Just because something isn't a lie does not mean that it isn't deceptive. A liar knows that he's a liar, but one who speaks mere portions of the truth in order to deceive, it's a real craftsman of destruction." This concept that we in media need to keep in mind when we're creating our stories and publications. If we adhere to this concept, then it would be hard to find oneself in trouble for true defamation. New York Times Company versus Sullivan, 1964. This is a case where the Times printed a full-page ad for individuals to help fund the civil rights movement in the South. The ad was titled, "Heed Their Rising Voices." Unfortunately, the staff at the New York Times failed to fact-check the ad before running it. This is what led to the filing of the libel case against the Times. The case was originally filed by L.B. Sullivan against New York Times Company for libel. Sullivan was a Montgomery Police Commissioner, and the New York Times was a print publication. It was Sullivan's belief that since he was the commissioner, the actions of the police would be attributed to him. He, along with two others whom also filed suit, believed that this ad would tarnish their reputations and have a negative impact on their lives. The Alabama court found for Sullivan and awarded him the damage in which he sought. It was the Alabama court's opinion that this was a clear case of defamation or libel. However, the Times attorneys were not satisfied with this decision, so they took it to the Supreme Court. Now, the elements of defamation are a false statement that is made to another that is not the party the statement is about. The party making the statement must be liable for negligence, but individuals that are considered public figures or officials must prove that the statements were made out of malice or blatant disregard for the truthfulness of the statement or not. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned the lower court's decision. The U.S. Supreme Court found that since L.B. Sullivan was a public official, according to the First Amendment, that he had to prove that the statement, or in this case, implication, was done out of malice. His case was unable to prove this. Now we'll move on to Gertz versus Welsh, 1973. The parties in this case are Elmer Gertz, a famed Chicago attorney, and Robert Welsh Incorporated, a parent company for the John Birch Society and the owner of American Opinion. In the article published by American Opinion, Gertz was labeled as a Leninist and a communist fronter. These allegations were based on Gertz's alleged left-wing affiliations. American Opinion did nothing to verify their story as far as obtaining proof of Gertz's association with the Communist Party or as a Leninist. Instead, they followed suit with the previous actions of the John Birch Society had become notorious for. So how this incident affected Mr. Gertz's reputation? Well, I would say that it was negative at first. But with the reversal of the lower court's findings by the Supreme Court, I believe that it was actually a boost to Mr. Gertz's career. He went on to practice law successfully for many more years. Now, when thinking on the accounts of, or on the actions of American Opinion publication, I would have been more diligent in doing research into the background of Mr. Gertz. I would have also attempted to gain interviews with credible sources to confirm his associations. Had I not been able to obtain these resources, I would have stated my opinions as such and not presented them as fact. Another step that the American Opinion could have taken after the fact was to publish a retraction along with an apology. Although this would not have unpublished the article, it may have deterred a lawsuit. Now, I live in the state of Utah. Here in Utah, according to Utah Criminal Code 769404, a person is guilty of criminal defamation if he knowingly communicates to any person, orally or in writing, any information which he knows to be false and knows will tend to expose any other living person to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule. Criminal defamation is a Class B misdemeanor. When you read in the code, it references both the cases that we've discussed. I provided a link in the presentation to the Utah State's Guide on Defamation. And so from this, I've definitely learned the importance of source verification and fact-checking. Phraseology is also key in avoiding defamation cases. Well, and lastly, conduct yourself with honor and honesty. Finally, I'd like to close with this last quote that I believe sums up the gist of what I've learned in this assignment. Walk away from gossip and verbal defamation. Speak only the good you know of other people and encourage others to do the same. That's Steve Marobi. Thank you very much for your time.